Snow pressed thick against the glass doors as Marcus Hill stepped into the wedding reception hall, Claire Whitmore's hand resting lightly in the crook of his elbow. He was a black, single father in a borrowed charcoal suit, snowmelt already darkening the leather of his boots. She was a senior partner at one of Boston's most prestigious law firms, 17 years his senior, her gaze steady as it swept across the sea of familiar faces. The moment they appeared in the doorway, the room's rhythm changed. Conversations didn't stop exactly, but they slowed. Eyes began their calculations, age, status, the unspoken question. Who doesn't belong here? Then someone asked about her age, and the entire reception hall fell into a silence so complete you could hear ice shifting in champagne glasses. Marcus Hill woke at 5:47 a.m. on Wednesday, 3 minutes before his alarm. The apartment was cold. The landlord's idea of winter heating never quite reached the back bedrooms, but he'd learned to move efficiently in the dark. He pulled on sweatpants and padded to Lena's room. His daughter was 7, small for her age, buried under 2 comforters and a weighted blanket he'd saved 4 months to buy. Her inhaler sat on the nightstand next to a glass of water, both positioned exactly where the pulmonologist had recommended. Marcus didn't wake her yet. He had 40 minutes to make breakfast, pack her lunch with the specific brand of applesauce she'd eat, and check that her book report was in her backpack. The Tuesday before, he'd forgotten, and Lena had cried in the car not because she was upset with him, but because she hated disappointing Mrs. Keating. That had gutted him more than any of her tears about missing her mother. By 6:30, oatmeal was cooling in 2 bowls his plain, hers with cinnamon and a drizzle of honey. He woke her gently, the way the parenting forum had suggested. Hand on her shoulder, soft voice, lights gradually brighter. "Hey, butterfly, school day." Lena blinked awake, her eyes finding his face first, then the window. It snowed again, 4 inches. "Want the purple boots or the gray ones?" Gray, purple squeaks in the hallway. Marcus filed that away. Lena hated unnecessary attention. She got enough just being one of 3 black kids in her grade, the only one without a mother who showed up to pick up. They ate in comfortable quiet. Lena reviewed her multiplication flashcards between bites. Marcus checked his phone. 2 client emails, both routine. He ran his own IT consulting business from home, which meant flexible hours, but also meant every missed deadline was his fault alone. "Yeah? Can I do coding club after school on Thursdays?" Mrs. Keating said there's space. Marcus considered. Thursday was his grocery day, but he could move it. "You really want to? I want to make a game, where you solve math problems to build a castle." Something in his chest loosened. Then yes, absolutely yes. At 7:40, they walked 3 blocks to Brookfield Elementary. The snow had been cleared, but kept falling, fat flakes that caught in Lena's braids. Other parents clustered near the entrance, mostly mothers, a few fathers in business casual, everyone white except for Mr. and Mrs. Chen. Marcus had learned not to expect conversation. He wasn't unfriendly, but he also wasn't going to pretend he fit into their world of SUV carpools and weekend ski trips. He worked. He parented. That was enough. But today, Jenny Patterson Brookfield's most active PTA volunteer approached with her determinedly cheerful smile. "Marcus, I meant to ask, are you coming to the Winter Gala fundraiser?" He kept his expression neutral. The gala was $150 per ticket. "Probably not this year." "Oh, that's too bad. It's really for the kids, you know. New playground equipment." Lena's hand tightened in his. She understood exactly what was happening, even at 7. Marcus gave Jenny his professional smile, the one he used with clients who assumed he was tech support, not the consultant they'd hired. "Lena's my priority. If she needs playground equipment, I'll donate directly." He'd said it politely, but Jenny's smile thinned. She nodded and turned away. Lena looked up at him. "You don't have to come to stuff, Dad. I know you're busy." "I come to the things that matter," Marcus said. "Your recital. your parent-teacher conferences. The coding club showcase is going to matter, right? Her smile was small but real. Right. He watched her disappear into the building, her backpack almost as big as her torso, and felt the familiar weight of doing this alone. Not self-pity, he'd worked through that in the 2 years since Sharon left, but the simple arithmetic of single parenthood. Every decision was his. Every mistake, every victory, every Tuesday morning panic about forgotten homework. Marcus pulled out his phone and checked his calendar. Today he had a system maintenance call at 11, then the rest of the afternoon free. He'd prep dinner early, maybe get ahead on invoices. He didn't know that in 4 hours, he'd meet someone who would make him reconsider what his life could look like. He didn't know yet that sometimes the most important things aren't planned at all. Claire Whitmore's office occupied the northwest corner of the 17th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows offering an unobstructed view of Boston Harbor. On clear days, she could see planes descending toward Logan. Today, she saw only snow and the gray suggestion of water beyond it. She'd arrived at 6:15 a.m., as always. The cleaning crew was still working, the coffee not yet brewed in the executive kitchen. Claire preferred it this way, the building quiet, her mind clear. 2 hours to work before her assistant arrived and the day's chaos began. At 47, she was the youngest senior partner at Hutchinson & Reed, and one of only 3 women in that position. She'd made it by being sharper, more prepared, more willing to work 100-hour weeks than anyone else. She'd made it by sacrificing things other people considered non-negotiable. Her marriage, for instance, David had filed for divorce 5 years ago, citing fundamental incompatibility, which was lawyer speak for you care more about winning cases than building a life together. He wasn't wrong. Claire had attended her own father's funeral via conference call because she was in the middle of a merger negotiation. She'd missed 3 anniversaries in a row, but she'd never missed a deadline, never lost a case she'd personally led, never showed weakness. Her phone buzzed a text from her sister, Diane. "Are you coming to Emma's spring recital?" She's asking about Aunt Claire. Claire's niece was 9. Claire had seen her maybe 4 times in the last 2 years. She typed back, "I'll try. Calendar is complicated right now." Diane's response came fast. "It's always complicated, Claire." Claire set the phone face down and returned to the brief in front of her. A pharmaceutical company accused of price fixing. The case was ugly, morally ambiguous, and would pay enough to cover her annual salary twice over. She worked until 8:30 when her assistant Margaret knocked and entered with coffee black, no sugar, and the day's schedule printed on cream cardstock. "You have the Morrison deposition at 9, Margaret said. "Lunch with Robert Chen at 12:30, then the partnership meeting at 3. "And you got another invitation to the Sullivan wedding." Claire glanced at the heavy envelope Margaret placed on her desk. Catherine Sullivan, a junior partner, marrying some finance executive. The wedding was in Vermont, at some resort Claire had probably stayed at for a corporate retreat. "RSVP regrets," Claire said automatically. "You've declined the last 4 wedding invitations." "I don't enjoy weddings." Margaret, who'd worked for Claire for 6 years and knew when to push, said carefully, "People notice when you never attend social functions." "People notice everything I do," Claire said. "That's the job." After Margaret left, Claire opened the invitation anyway. Thick paper, elegant script, a weekend in February at the Snow Peak Lodge. +1 encouraged. She thought about going alone, enduring the pitying looks from colleagues who'd brought spouses. The speculation about why successful, attractive Claire Whitmore was still single at 47. She thought about not going at all, confirming what people already whispered, that she was married to her work, that she'd chosen ambition over humanity. Then she thought about the stack of pending cases on her desk, the empty condo waiting for her tonight, the fact that she genuinely couldn't remember the last time she'd attended an event that wasn't professionally mandated. Claire set the invitation aside and returned to work. But for the first time in months, the work felt hollow. Marcus arrived at Hutchinson and Reed at 10:53 a.m., 7 minutes early for his 11 o'clock appointment. The lobby was all marble and glass, the kind of space designed to make visitors feel both impressed and small. He approached the reception desk with his work bag and visitor badge request. Marcus Hill. I have an appointment with IT Services. The receptionist barely looked up. 17th floor, elevator bank C. Marcus had worked enough corporate jobs to recognize the architecture of dismissal. He didn't take it personally. He took the elevator, checked the work order on his phone, and found the IT director waiting in a server room that looked like it hadn't been updated since 2015. You're the consultant? The director, a harried-looking man named Phil, sounded skeptical. I'm Marcus Hill. You called about network latency and intermittent crashes. Yeah, but I thought the firm was sending someone more senior. Marcus had heard variations of this his entire career. He set down his bag and pulled out his diagnostic tablet. I've been doing network architecture for 12 years. Your firm's previous consultant referred you to me specifically. Want to show me the server logs? Or should I come back when someone senior is available? Phil flushed. No, sorry. The crashes have been happening during critical hours. We can't afford mistakes. Then you hired the right person. Marcus spent the next 90 minutes tracing the problem of firmware conflict between the old servers and new security software. It was exactly the kind of issue a less experienced tech might miss, throwing hardware at a software problem. He was finishing up when someone knocked on the server room door. Phil? Do you have a minute? Marcus glanced up and saw a woman in her late 40s, gray suit, dark hair pulled back. The kind of self-possession that came from years of fighting for space in rooms full of men who didn't want to make room. Phil jumped slightly. Miss Whitmore. Yes, of course. Claire's gaze shifted to Marcus, taking in his presence the way good lawyers assess witnesses quickly, thoroughly, without revealing their conclusions. I didn't realize we had outside contractors today, she said. Network issue, Phil explained nervously. This is Marcus Hill. He's fixing the latency problem. Have you fixed it? Claire asked Marcus directly. Yes. Firmware conflict. Your system should be stable now, but I'd recommend a phased hardware upgrade over the next fiscal year. Your current infrastructure is aging out. Claire studied him for a moment longer. That's the same recommendation our previous consultant gave us. They wanted to sell us a complete overhaul at twice the market rate. I'm not here to sell you anything, Marcus said. I'm here to fix what's broken. But if you don't address the underlying issue, you'll keep having these crashes. Something in Claire's expression shifted, not warmth exactly, but a recognition. What's the realistic timeline and cost for what you're suggesting? Marcus pulled up his preliminary assessment. 18 months. Phased replacement starting with critical infrastructure. Budget around $300,000, assuming you're not being gouged on hardware. Send me your full analysis, Claire said. Margaret will give you my email. She left without further comment. Phil exhaled. That's Claire Whitmore, senior partner. She doesn't usually come down to IT. She came down because you're having problems during critical hours, Marcus said. She wanted to see if I knew what I was talking about. Did you pass? Marcus packed up his equipment. I guess we'll see. Marcus didn't expect to hear from Claire Whitmore again. He sent his analysis that evening, detailed but concise, and moved on to his next client. 3 days later, Margaret called. Miss Whitmore would like to schedule a meeting to discuss your infrastructure proposal. Are you available Tuesday at 2? The meeting was professional, efficient. Claire had read his analysis thoroughly, asked questions that demonstrated she understood the technical implications, and approved a modified version of his timeline. I'll need monthly progress reports, she said, detailed but readable. I don't have time for technical jargon when I'm trying to understand resource allocation. Understood. And Marcus? She looked at him directly. I don't like being sold things I don't need. If you try to inflate costs or extend timelines unnecessarily, we're done. Clear? Clear. Over the next month, Marcus came in twice weekly to oversee the first phase of upgrades. He worked mostly with Phil's team, but occasionally Claire would stop by ostensibly to check progress. But Marcus suspected she was also escaping whatever politics happened on the 17th floor. "How's it going?" she'd ask, and Marcus would give her honest updates. No spin, no overselling, just the truth about what was working and what wasn't. He noticed things about her. The way she arrived before everyone else and left after them. The way she drank her coffee black and ate lunch at her desk. The way she asked questions not to test him, but because she genuinely wanted to understand. And he noticed that she never wore a wedding ring, never mentioned weekend plans, never seemed to exist anywhere outside this building. One afternoon in early February, Marcus was at the coffee shop 2 blocks from Hutchinson and Reed, working on invoices while Lena did homework beside him. It was a Thursday. Coding club had been canceled due to weather. Lena was deep in a math worksheet when Claire walked in, shaking snow from her coat. She saw Marcus immediately. Hesitated. Then approached their table. "Marcus, I didn't know you worked from coffee shops. Only when my daughter's with me. Easier than trying to entertain her at home." He gestured to Lena. "This is Lena. Butterfly. This is Miss Whitmore. She's a client." Lena looked up, polite but reserved. "Hi." Claire smiled a real smile, warmer than anything Marcus had seen at the office. "Hi, Lena. What are you working on?" "Multiplication. And a book report on Harriet the Spy. That was one of my favorites when I was your age. Have you gotten to the part where she gets caught?" Lena's eyes lit up. "Yes, and everyone's mad at her, but she didn't mean to hurt anyone. She just wanted to understand people." Claire glanced at Marcus, something unreadable in her expression. Understanding people is complicated. Sometimes watching carefully is the only way to figure out what's really happening. She ordered her coffee and left shortly after, but not before telling Lena, "Good luck with your book report." After she was gone, Lena asked, "Is she nice?" Marcus considered. "I think she's careful, but yeah, I think underneath she's nice. She seems lonely." Marcus looked at his 7-year-old daughter, her perception sharp as always. "Maybe she is. You could be her friend," Lena said simply. Marcus wasn't sure that was true. Since Sharon left, he'd let most friendships fade, focused entirely on work and Lena. But there was something about Claire, her competence, her refusal to perform warmth she didn't feel, her obvious isolation that made him want to try. The next week, he brought her coffee during one of their progress meetings. Black, no sugar. Claire looked at the cup, then at him. "You didn't have to do that." "I know." She took it anyway. And for just a moment, her guard dropped far enough for him to see the gratitude underneath. They started having lunch together. Not often, maybe once a week, but regularly enough that it became a thing they did. Claire would leave her office, Marcus would leave whatever server room he was working in, and they'd walk to the sandwich place on the corner. They talked about work mostly. Claire explained the peculiar politics of law firms. Marcus described the challenge of running a business while raising a daughter alone. Neither of them flirted. Neither acknowledged that these lunches meant anything beyond professional courtesy. But Marcus noticed the way Claire's shoulders relaxed when they sat down. The way she asked about Lena unprompted. The way she actually laughed when he told her about his daughter's latest coding project gone wrong. And Claire noticed the way Marcus listened. Really listened, not just waiting for his turn to talk. The way he remembered details she'd mentioned weeks ago. The way he treated her like a person, not a title. It was during their 5th lunch that Claire mentioned the wedding. "I have a work event coming up," she said carefully. "A colleague's wedding in Vermont. Everyone's bringing partners." Marcus waited. Claire wasn't someone who said things without purpose. "I was thinking of not going," she continued. But my assistant pointed out that I've declined the last several invitations. People notice. Do you care what people notice? Professionally? Yes. Claire set down her sandwich. Socially, I've spent most of my adult life not caring. But lately, I'm wondering if that was wise. Marcus thought about Jenny Patterson at Lena's school, about the calculations people made when they looked at him. Social politics are exhausting, whether you care or not. True. Claire was quiet for a moment. The problem is going alone makes a statement. Not going makes a statement. Everything at my level is theater, so you need a plus one who doesn't add to the theater. Essentially, Marcus met her eyes. Are you asking me? Claire's composure slipped just slightly, just enough to show uncertainty. I'm considering it. But I'm also aware of what people would say about the age difference, about other differences. There it was, the thing they'd both been dancing around. Marcus was 30. Claire was 47. He was black. She was white. He was a single father running a small business. She was a senior partner at a prestigious firm. What would they say? Marcus asked evenly. That I'm having a midlife crisis. That you're, I don't know, looking for a professional connection. That we don't make sense. Do we make sense? Claire looked at him, really looked, the way she'd looked that first day in the server room. I don't know yet. But I know I'd rather go with someone I trust than go alone. And I know I'm tired of making every decision based on optics. Marcus thought about Lena, about the coding club showcase coming up, about the careful structure of his life. Adding Claire, adding whatever this was becoming, would complicate things. People would judge. They already judged him for being a black single father. They'd judge harder for this. But Claire had asked, and she'd been honest about the cost. When is it? He said finally. February 15th. It's a weekend, Friday through Sunday. I'd need to arrange childcare for Lena. I understand if that's too complicated. I didn't say no, Marcus interrupted gently. I said I'd need to arrange childcare. There's a difference. Claire's expression shifted. Not quite a smile, but something warmer. So that's a yes? That's a yes. On one condition, which is, you tell me honestly if you're doing this because you want to or because you feel obligated. Because I don't do things out of obligation anymore. Life's too short. Claire was quiet for a long moment. I want to, she said finally. I'm terrified of what people will think, and I'm not even sure what we're doing, but I want to go with you. Then we'll go, Marcus said, and let people think whatever they need to think. The Snow Peak Lodge sat 40 miles northwest of Montpelier, accessible only by a winding mountain road that became treacherous in winter. Claire drove Marcus's sedan, didn't have snow tires, and neither of them spoke much during the 2-hour trip. Marcus kept thinking about the conversation with Lena that morning. His daughter had helped him pick out his suit jacket, insisted he bring the good shoes, and told him seriously, Miss, Claire is lucky you're going with her. Why's that, Butterfly? Because you're the best dad. That makes you a good person to have at scary things. Kids saw things clearly sometimes. The lodge appeared through the snow like something from a postcard, all exposed timber and warm light. Mountains rising behind it. The parking lot held expensive cars, all-wheel drive SUVs, one Tesla. Marcus pulled his overnight bag from the trunk. Claire had booked separate rooms without discussion, which he appreciated. Whatever this was, it wasn't an assumption. Ready? Claire asked. Are you? She smiled tightly. No, but I've walked into hostile courtrooms. I can handle a wedding reception. The lobby was full of arriving guests, most of them lawyers Marcus recognized from the firm. They looked at Claire first, professional warmth, calculated friendliness. Then their gazes shifted to Marcus, and the calculations became visible. Who is he? What's he doing here? How old is he? Claire's hand found his elbow, not possessive but grounding. Let's check in. They were intercepted before reaching the desk by Catherine Sullivan herself, the bride, radiant in casual elegance, her smile bright and entirely performative. "Claire, you made it. And you brought." Her eyes did the same arithmetic everyone else's had done. "This is Marcus Hill," Claire said evenly. "Marcus, Catherine Sullivan." "Congratulations," Marcus said, offering his hand. Catherine shook it, her smile never wavering. "Thank you. I'm so glad Claire found someone to bring. She works too much, you know. Someone needs to get her out of the office." The condescension was subtle but unmistakable. Marcus felt Claire stiffen beside him. "Actually, we met through work," he said mildly. "I consult for the firm." "Oh, so you're in IT?" Catherine's tone made it sound like he'd said he cleaned the floors. "Network architecture and infrastructure design," Marcus corrected. "Claire hired me to overhaul your entire digital security system. Should be finished by spring." Catherine's smile thinned. "How enterprising. Well, we're glad you could make it. The reception starts at 6. She moved on to greet other guests. Claire exhaled slowly. "I'm sorry," she murmured. Catherine can be condescending to people she considers beneath her. Marcus finished. "I noticed. Does that happen to you a lot? Different version, same concept. I'm a woman in a male-dominated field. You're." She hesitated. "Black in a white-dominated space," Marcus said. "I know, but that's not why she was condescending. She would have been like that to any +1 you brought who wasn't another lawyer. This is about status, not race. Still unacceptable." "Agreed. But we knew this would happen." Marcus picked up his bag. "Come on, let's get changed and show them we don't care what they think." The reception hall had been transformed into a winter wonderland. White flowers, crystal accents, candles reflecting off snow-covered windows. It was beautiful, in an impersonal way, like a magazine spread. Marcus stood at the entrance in his charcoal suit, not borrowed. He'd realized that morning, but one he'd bought 3 years ago for Sharon's cousin's wedding. Claire wore deep blue silk, elegant and understated, her only jewelry, small diamond earrings. They looked good together. Marcus could see that in the mirror before they left. But looking good and looking right were different things in this world. The moment they entered, conversations didn't stop, but they pivoted. Eyes tracked their movement across the room. Marcus felt the weight of every gaze, every quick, whispered exchange. A colleague of Claire's, Robert Chen, the one she'd mentioned having lunch with, approached with genuine warmth. "Claire, and this must be the mysterious +1. I'm Robert, Marcus Hill." They shook hands. "Marcus is consulting on our infrastructure upgrade," Claire explained. "Oh, you're the one Phil keeps raving about. Said you caught a problem their previous consultant missed entirely." "It wasn't that complicated," Marcus said. "Just required looking at the whole system, not just individual components. Sounds like legal work." Robert smiled. "You should see some of the jurisdictional messes we untangle." The conversation was easy, professional. But Marcus noticed how Robert's presence made other people relax slightly, as if a known quantity vouching for Marcus made him more acceptable. They moved through the cocktail hour like that. Claire introduced him to colleagues, Marcus responded to polite questions about his work, and underneath it all ran the current of judgment. Most people were too professional to be openly rude, but their surprise was transparent. Claire Whitmore brought someone young, someone black, someone who works with computers. An older partner named Douglas approached with his wife, both holding champagne. "Claire, darling, so glad you could make it. We hardly see you at these events. I've been busy with the Hendricks case. Always working." Douglas turned to Marcus with practiced civility. "And who's this?" "Marcus Hill." He's with me," Claire interrupted, a edge to her voice Marcus hadn't heard before. "That's all the introduction necessary." Douglas's smile froze. "Of course. Lovely to meet you, Marcus." After they moved away, Marcus murmured, "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." Douglas was about to ask what you do, where you're from, how we met, all the questions designed to determine whether you're appropriate. I can handle questions. I know, but you shouldn't have to prove yourself to him. Marcus looked at her carefully. You're angry. I'm tired, Claire said. Tired of performing, tired of everyone measuring everything. Tired of… She stopped, collecting herself. Sorry. This is supposed to be a nice evening. It's okay to be tired, Marcus said quietly. I'm tired too. But we're here now. Might as well eat the expensive food and make it through the speeches. Claire's smile was small but genuine, practical as always. Comes with the single-parent territory. You learn to focus on what you can control. They found their assigned seats, table 7, middle of the room. The place cards indicated they'd be sitting with 2 other couples, both lawyers from the firm. Marcus recognized one of them. Jennifer Parrish, a junior partner he'd met briefly during the infrastructure assessment. Jennifer greeted them warmly enough, but her husband, Martin something, finance, barely acknowledged Marcus before turning back to his conversation about skiing. The other couple was younger, closer to Marcus's age. The woman, Amy, worked in the litigation department. Her husband taught high school history. Finally, someone who doesn't talk about billable hours, the husband, Tyler, said to Marcus with relief. What do you do? IT consulting. Network architecture. So you're the reason the internet works when the rest of us have no idea why. Marcus smiled. Something like that. Tyler launched into a story about his school's technology failures, and for a few minutes, the conversation felt almost normal. But Marcus could see Jennifer watching Claire, calculating, measuring the age difference and everything it implied. Dinner was served salmon with winter vegetables, perfectly prepared, utterly forgettable. The speeches began. Catherine's father, maudlin and slightly drunk. The maid of honor, funny in places. The groom, earnest and clearly nervous. Marcus found himself studying the room. All these successful people, all this wealth and education and carefully maintained social position. And yet, the happiness felt performative, the connections transactional. He thought about Lena, probably asleep now at his mother's house, her coding notebook open on the nightstand. He thought about the simple clarity of his daughter's world, friends who liked you or didn't, problems that could be solved with logic and patience. This world was different. Here, everything meant something else. Every conversation was negotiation. Every smile had calculation behind it. You okay? Claire murmured beside him. Yeah, just thinking. About how much easier my daughter's third-grade classroom politics are than this. Claire almost laughed. God, that's depressing. And completely accurate. The speeches ended. Music started, a string quartet playing something classical and romantic. Couples moved to the dance floor. Claire tensed beside him. We don't have to dance, Marcus said. Everyone will notice if we don't. Everyone's already noticing everything. Dance if you want to dance. Claire looked at him, something shifting in her expression. Do you want to dance? Marcus considered. He wasn't a great dancer, but he'd learned enough for weddings and Lena's recitals, and suddenly, he wanted to claim this space not for the audience, but because Claire had asked. Yeah, he said. I do. He stood, offered his hand. Claire took it, and they moved to the dance floor while their table mates watched with barely concealed interest. The music was slow, intimate. Marcus placed his hand on Claire's waist, found the rhythm, kept respectable distance. Claire followed his lead smoothly, her dancer's instinct better than his. You're better at this than you implied, she said. I learned for Lena's ballet recital last year. The dad-daughter dance. She was so proud. Something in Claire's face softened. You're a good father. I try to be. They danced in silence for a while. Around them, other couples swayed Catherine and her groom, colleagues and spouses, people who fit together in obvious ways. But Marcus found he didn't care about obvious anymore. Claire was here with him by choice. They'd walked into this room together knowing exactly what people would think, and they'd done it anyway. That mattered more than fitting in. The song ended. They returned to their table. And that's when Virginia Ashford appeared, senior partner, 63 years old, the most politically powerful woman at Hutchinson and Reed. She smiled at Claire with grandmotherly warmth, then turned her sharp gaze on Marcus. "Claire, dear, you're absolutely glowing. You should bring dates to these events more often." She paused, her smile never wavering. "Tell me, how old are you now?" "I always lose track." The question landed like a stone in still water. The conversations at their table stopped mid-sentence. Jennifer Parrish's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Tyler, who'd been laughing at something, went quiet. Claire's hand tightened on her water glass. Virginia waited, her expression perfectly pleasant, as if she'd asked about the weather. But everyone at the table, everyone within hearing distance, understood exactly what she was really asking. How old is Claire to be here with someone so young? How desperate must she be? How inappropriate is this, really? The silence spread outward like ripples, table by table, until a significant portion of the reception hall had gone quiet, everyone watching to see how Claire Whitmore would respond to being publicly diminished by the woman who controlled her professional future. Marcus felt the moment crystallize. This wasn't curiosity. This was a power play, carefully executed, designed to humiliate Claire in front of colleagues and clients. Virginia Ashford hadn't gotten to senior partner by accident. She knew exactly what she was doing. Claire opened her mouth to respond. Marcus could see her lawyer's instinct activating, preparing to deflect, to minimize, to survive this moment with her dignity partially intact. But he spoke first. 47, Marcus said clearly, his voice carrying in the unnatural quiet. Claire is 47 years old. Virginia's smile never wavered, but her eyes sharpened. "I wasn't asking you, dear." "I know," Marcus said, "but I'm answering anyway." He didn't raise his voice, didn't get aggressive, just held Virginia's gaze with the same calm he used when explaining technical problems to clients who didn't want to hear the truth. "Claire is 47, he repeated. "I'm 30. That's a 17-year age difference. Since I assume that's what you actually wanted to know." The silence deepened. Claire had gone very still beside him. Marcus continued, his tone conversational but firm. "I know what you're thinking. Everyone here is thinking it. What's a successful woman like Claire doing with someone like me? Someone younger, someone who doesn't have a law degree or a partnership or the right family background." Marcus Claire started, but he shook his head slightly. "I work in IT, he said. "I'm a single father. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment in Dorchester and drive a 10-year-old sedan. I don't ski in Vermont or summer in the Hamptons. By every measure this room uses to determine worth, I don't belong here." Virginia's smile had finally faded. Around them, people had stopped even pretending not to listen. "But here's what's true," Marcus said quietly. "Claire is the most competent person I've ever met. She's brilliant and disciplined, and she works harder than anyone in this room. She's also exhausted from spending her entire adult life proving she deserves space in places that don't want to make room for her." He looked around the table, making eye contact with Jennifer, with Martin, with Amy, and Tyler. "She came to this wedding because people notice when she doesn't attend social functions. She brought me because she was tired of going to these events alone. And now you're all proving exactly why she didn't want to come in the first place." "Young man," Virginia began, her voice tight. "I'm not finished," Marcus said, polite but implacable. "You asked how old Claire is. That's not the question you meant to ask. What you meant was, why would someone like you be with someone like him? So let me answer that too." Claire's hand found his under the table, squeezed once. Marcus didn't look away from Virginia. "I'm with Claire because she's smart and funny and honest. Because she asks real questions and listens to real answers. Because she treats people like people, not like status markers or professional advantages. He paused, letting the words settle. And Claire is with me if she wants to be, which is her choice entirely because I see her as a person, not a resume. Because I don't need her to be anything other than exactly who she is. Because when we have lunch, we talk about things that matter instead of performing for an audience. The silence was absolute now. Even the string quartet had stopped playing. Marcus turned back to Virginia, his voice gentle but clear. So yes, Claire is 47. I'm 30. We're here together, and the only people who should have an opinion about that are the two of us. He sat down. No one spoke. Virginia Ashford, a woman who'd made a career of controlling rooms, stood frozen, her carefully constructed power play completely dismantled. Claire's grip on Marcus's hand had turned white-knuckled, but when he glanced at her, she wasn't looking at Virginia or the watching crowd. She was looking at him, her eyes bright with something between gratitude and wonder. Finally, Tyler, the high school teacher, started clapping. It was slow at first, uncertain. But Amy joined in. Then Robert Chen, from across the room. Then others, scattered at first, but building. Not everyone clapped. Jennifer Parrish sat frozen. Douglas and his wife exchanged uncomfortable glances, and Virginia Ashford turned and walked away without another word. Her heels sharp on the hardwood floor, but enough people clapped that the moment shifted. The silence broke. Conversations resumed, quieter now, tinged with something different than before. Catherine Sullivan appeared, her smile brittle. Well, that was certainly dramatic. Perhaps we should. We're fine, Claire said, her voice steady. She stood, still holding Marcus's hand. But I think we'll step outside for some air. They walked out of the reception hall together, through the lobby, onto the snow-covered terrace where the cold was sharp and clean. Claire released his hand, walked to the railing, and stood there for a long moment, her breath making clouds in the frozen air. I can't believe you did that, she said finally. I'm sorry if I overstepped. No. She turned to face him. Don't apologize. Virginia was being cruel. Virginia was being Virginia. That's how this world works. Maybe, Marcus said. But that doesn't make it right. And you didn't deserve to be humiliated in front of everyone. Claire laughed, a sound somewhere between amusement and disbelief. I've spent 25 years in rooms like that. I learned how to survive them, how to deflect, minimize, keep my head down and my dignity intact. I know, but you didn't do that. You just told the truth. Marcus moved to stand beside her at the railing. Seemed like the right approach. In there? Claire gestured back toward the reception. The truth is radical. The truth is dangerous. You just made yourself a target for every person in that room who cares about maintaining social order. Good thing I don't work for any of them. Marcus. Claire's voice was serious now. What you said about me, about us, was that true? Or was it for show? He looked at her carefully. Which part are you asking about? All of it. The part about seeing me as a person. The part about being with me. The part about... She stopped, vulnerable in a way he'd never seen. Did you mean it? Marcus thought about Lena's question that morning. Why do you like Miss Claire? He'd told his daughter. Because she's brave, and because she's tired of pretending. I meant it, he said now. Every word. I don't know what we're doing or where this goes, but I know I drove 2 hours to be here because I wanted to, not as a favor. Not for professional connections. Because you asked, and I wanted to say yes. Claire's eyes searched his face. I'm 47 years old, Marcus. I've been divorced for 5 years. I don't want children. I work 80-hour weeks. I'm terrible at relationships and worse at admitting I need people. Okay. She almost laughed. That's your response? You think any of that's news to me? Marcus smiled slightly. I'm a 30-year-old single father with a 7-year-old daughter and a consulting business that barely covers expenses. I work from coffee shops, I can't afford ski vacations, and I'm probably going to embarrass you at every professional function we attend because I don't know how to play these social games. You didn't embarrass me tonight. Give it time." Claire shook her head, something loosening in her expression. "This is insane." "Probably. People are going to talk. Virginia will make this difficult for me politically. Your presence at firm functions will be scrutinized. The age gap will be constant fodder for speculation. And you're still here. I'm still here." Claire was quiet for a long moment, snow catching in her hair, the sounds of the reception muffled behind them. Then she said, "I don't know how to do this. Be with someone. Let someone see me when I'm not being strong." "I don't know how to do this either," Marcus admitted. "I've been a single parent for 2 years. Before that, I was married to someone who left because I wasn't enough. I have no idea how to navigate whatever this is. So we're both flying blind." "Seems like it. That should be terrifying." "Is it?" Claire considered. "No. Surprisingly, it's not." They stood there in the cold, neither touching but standing close enough to feel connected. Inside, the reception continued. Out here, the world was quiet and white and clean. "We should probably go back in," Claire said eventually. "Make an appearance. Show we're not running away. Do you want to?" "Not particularly. But I'm not going to let Virginia Ashford think she drove me out of my colleague's wedding." Marcus smiled. "Fair enough." They walked back inside together. The reception had shifted. People were dancing again, drinking, clustering in small groups. But as Claire and Marcus crossed to their table, conversations paused. Eyes followed. This time, though, the quality of attention was different. Less judgment, more curiosity. A few people even nodded at them with what looked like approval. Robert Chen intercepted them near the bar. "That was quite a speech, Marcus. Wasn't planning it. Best ones never are." He looked at Claire. "Virginia left about 10 minutes ago, claimed a headache." "I'm sure she did," Claire said dryly. "For what it's worth, she had it coming. She's been pulling that kind of power play for years." Robert smiled. It's about time someone called her on it. They stayed another hour, long enough to not be running away, short enough to preserve their dignity. When they finally said goodnight to Catherine and the groom, the bride's smile was more genuine than it had been at the beginning of the evening. "Thank you for coming, Claire. And Marcus, it was memorable meeting you." "Congratulations," Marcus said, meaning it. They drove back to the lodge in silence, both processing what had happened. Marcus kept replaying the moment he'd stood up to Virginia, wondering if he'd made everything worse for Claire. Inside her room, they'd agreed to talk before going to separate spaces. Claire poured them both water from the minibar and sat on the edge of the bed. "You're worried," she said. "I might have just cost you a senior partnership recommendation." "Virginia's recommendation isn't everything, but it's something." Claire smiled tiredly. "It's something. But here's the thing about Virginia, she respects strength. She doesn't like it, but she respects it. What you did tonight? That was strength. Or stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing." Claire set down her water glass. "Marcus, I need to ask you something serious." "Okay, what are we doing? Because if this is just... If you were defending me as a friend, as a decent human being seeing injustice, I understand. But if there's more to it, I need to know. Because I can't do ambiguous. I'm too old for games." Marcus sat down in the chair across from her. "What do you want this to be? I asked you first." "Fair." He thought about how to explain what he'd been feeling for weeks. "When I first met you, I thought you were intimidating. Competent. Brilliant. Maybe a little cold. But then I saw you weren't cold, you were protecting yourself. And I recognized that because I do the same thing." Claire listened without interrupting. "These last few weeks, having lunch with you, working on the infrastructure project, talking about real things instead of performing, I've looked forward to it. Not because you're a professional contact, because I like who you are when you're not being a senior partner. And tonight? Tonight I was defending you because Virginia was being cruel. but I also meant everything I said. About seeing you as a person. About wanting to be here with you. Claire's expression was unreadable. I'm scared. Of what? Of this. Of letting someone in. Of the complications, because there will be complications, Marcus. Your daughter. My career. The age difference. The optics. I know. And you still want to try? Marcus thought about Lena's words that morning. You're the best dad. That makes you a good person to have it scary things. Yeah, he said quietly. Claire stood, crossed to where he sat, and for the first time since they'd met, she reached out to touch his face, gentle, tentative, testing if this was real. I don't know how to do slow, she said. I don't know how to do casual. I'm either all in or all out. I have a 7-year-old daughter who's my entire world. Slow is the only way I can do this. Then we'll figure it out together. It wasn't a declaration of love. Wasn't a promise of forever. Just two people who'd survived a difficult evening, deciding to see what happened next. Claire kissed him brief, careful, a question more than an answer. Marcus kissed her back, equally careful, equally questioning. When they pulled apart, Claire smiled. That was terrifying. I was going to say nice, but terrifying works too. They stood there for another moment, neither quite sure what to do next. Then Marcus said, I should probably go. We both need to process tonight. Probably wise. At the door, he paused. Claire, for what it's worth, I think you're brave. Not for bringing me tonight, for being willing to try something that doesn't fit into your carefully planned life. You too, she said softly. Sunday morning, they had breakfast in the Lodge restaurant before driving back to Boston. The drive was easier than the trip up, more conversation, less tension. The beginning of something neither of them could quite name yet. Marcus's phone buzzed when they hit the city limits. Lena, checking in via his mother's phone. Did you have fun, Dad? He texted back. I did, Butterfly. Can't wait to tell you about it. Claire glanced over. How much will you tell her? About the wedding? The truth. That I went with you. That some people were rude. That I stood up for you. She's 7. She's 7 and smart. She already knows people can be cruel for stupid reasons. Better she hears it from me than figures it out alone. Claire was quiet for a moment. Can I meet her? Officially, I mean. Not just running into her at a coffee shop. Marcus felt something settle in his chest. Yeah. I'd like that. But fair warning, she's going to grill you about whether you like coding and if you've read the right books. I can handle a 7-year-old's interrogation. I'm a lawyer. You say that now. They pulled up to Claire's building in Back Bay. Before she got out, she turned to him. Thank you for this weekend, for coming with me, for what you said to Virginia, for all of it. Thank you for asking me. Same time next week for lunch? Absolutely. Claire smiled, leaned over, kissed him briefly. Then she got out, pulled her bag from the trunk, and walked into her building without looking back. Marcus sat there for a moment, processing everything. The wedding, the confrontation, the kiss, the terrifying, exhilarating reality that he was starting something with someone who didn't fit into any expected pattern. His phone buzzed again. Lena. Mom says you're smiling weird. Are you okay? He laughed, typing back. I'm good, Butterfly. Really good. See you soon. Then he drove across town to pick up his daughter, thinking about Monday's infrastructure meeting, about next week's lunch, about the slow, careful way two people might build something real in a world that expected them to fail. The snow had stopped. The city was bright and clean, and for the first time in a long time, Marcus felt like he was exactly where he needed to be.